next system that we are going to be studying is the urinary system. So we're going to go through some intro stuff with this, and then we'll be doing a lot more with information that will be introduced in this lesson as we go through our work on this system. So if we look at the functions of the urinary system, it's going to be, the main function is to eliminate waste products from our body. That's going to include nitrogenous wastes, which come from us breaking down food and metabolizing food so we can get energy. Toxins that might build up in our body, as well as drugs, medications, illegal drugs. Some of those are going to be filtered out of your body through your kidneys. It's going to also regulate aspects of homeostasis, so it includes water balance because your urinary system will remove your urine from your body, and the liquid part of urine comes from the water in your blood. So as extra water is removed from your blood, that makes its way out of your body in your urine. It's also going to help to regulate electrolytes so that chemical reactions can happen properly. Acid-base balance in the blood. It's also going to help to regulate blood pressure, again, because it's going to have an impact on your blood volume since it's going to filter or remove excess water from your body. It's also going to help with red blood cell production because our kidneys produce a hormone called erythropoietin that will trigger our bone marrow, our red bone marrow, to make red blood cells. It's also going to help to activate vitamin D, which we need to be able to use the calcium that's in our body. As far as the number of organs, the urinary system is fairly simple because there aren't that many organs in the system, but they are complex in their function. So we have kidneys, which you have 2 of. You also have 2 ureters. Those are going to be the tubes that carry the urine that's formed in your kidneys down to your bladder. So we have the urinary bladder, which you have 1 of those. And then there's also 1 urethra. On your notes, you're going to be labeling the starred parts of the system. So you can see we have the inferior vena cava. That's going to be taking filtered blood from your kidneys back up to your heart. Your aorta will be bringing blood from the heart to the kidneys. So from the aorta, you have the left renal artery and the right renal artery that bring blood into the kidneys. It'll be filtered as the blood passes through the blood vessels in your kidneys. And then that filtered blood is going to leave your kidneys in your renal vein. Those join with the inferior vena cava to take that filtered blood back to your heart. You have your kidneys, which there are 2 of, and you can see that the right kidney is slightly lower than the left kidney, and we'll talk about why in a minute. Your ureters, again, you have 2, 1 going from each kidney to the bladder or the urinary bladder, which we have right here. That's going to temporarily store urine. And then we have the urethra, which is the tube that urine leaves our body in. For the location of our kidneys, okay, they're going to be against the dorsal wall of our body or along the back wall of our body. You can see that here. This would be, the structure right here is our vertebrae. So the back and then the front of your body, this would be the belly side of the body and the back side of the body. It's going to be right at the bottom of your vertebrae, or bottom of your rib cage, and on either side of your vertebrae, I should say. Again, the right kidney is slightly lower than the left, and that's due to the position of the liver. You can see that here. Because that's such a large internal organ, that's going to take up some of that space where the right kidney would be if it were at the same level or same height in your body as the left kidney. There are different coverings of your kidneys. So we have the fibrous capsule, which will surround each kidney. There's the perirenal fat capsule, and that's going to help to offer some cushion to your kidneys. If you were to get hit or if you fell, it's going to provide some protection. And then there's the renal fascia, which is the outermost capsule, and that's going to help hold the kidney in place so that they stay where they should be along the back wall of your body and not kind of fall inside your abdominal cavity due to gravity. Here we can just see those coverings. So you have the renal fascia here. Here's some renal fat that helps cushion the kidney. The ureter and blood vessels would be leaving the kidney right in this part. And here again, you can see the perirenal fat capsule, which is right along the kidney. Then we have the renal fascia, okay, which again we can see in the real picture over here. And then the pararenal fat capsule is on the outside of that to offer, again, just more cushioning. And again, here you would have the fibrous capsule. They're all going to help offer protection to our kidneys. If we look at the interior regions of the kidney, we have the renal cortex. That's the outer region. You can see that right here in the diagram here, or in the actual kidney here. It's kind of bracketed there so you can see where that would be located. Next, we have the renal medulla that is inside, and again, you can see it. So it's all of this part in here, or in the diagram, all of this part in here is the renal medulla. And then we have the renal pelvis, which is right here, or in the diagram right here. That is going to help to funnel urine that's going to be formed in the kidneys to the ureter so it can travel down to the bladder. If we see, let me go back real quick. So you can see that these are kind of triangular in shape, the renal medulla. Little hard to distinguish the triangular shape here, but it is. Those are referred to as the renal or medullary pyramids. Those are just triangular regions of tissue in the renal medulla. The renal columns are going to be separating the pyramids. So again, if we go back real quick, this area of tissue here in between each of the renal pyramids, or you would have kind of coming in here. You can see it better down here, the renal columns. Okay. And then we have calyces, which are cup-shaped structures that help to, again, funnel urine toward the renal pelvis so that it can leave the kidneys. For your blood supply, about a quarter of your total blood supply of the body passes through your kidneys each minute. And then here we have the blood vessels that the blood would pass through as it goes through your kidneys. So from the aorta, it would branch off and you have a renal artery to each kidney. In the, a higher level of anatomy, we would go through and learn all of these different arteries. But for us, it's going to be aorta, and then the renal artery takes blood into the kidney. All of these are inside the kidney. And then we would have the glomerulus, which is a ball of capillaries. That's going to be important to us. And then it's going to move into veins. We'd have renal veins bringing blood out of the kidney and joining with the inferior vena cava to take that filtered blood back to the heart. Okay. Here we can just kind of see that. So aorta, that's bringing blood from the left ventricle down. This would be our abdominal aorta here. That's going to branch off to be the renal arteries. Remember that artery starts with A. They carry blood away from the heart. So they will bring blood to your kidneys. It's oxygenated blood, but it's unfiltered when it comes to your kidneys. And as it passes through your kidneys, it's going to be cleaned of waste and toxins. With the function of our kidneys, we'll get into that, but blood, we've got a nice little typo in there. Blood, waste, water enter the kidney through the renal artery. It gets filtered as it passes through, and then the waste that's filtered out and excess water will leave the kidney in the ureter to go to the bladder. And then the renal vein is going to carry filtered blood back to the heart, and that will go into the right atrium of the heart and then get pumped into the left ventricle or right ventricle and then to the lungs to be oxygenated, back to the left side of the heart, and then out to the body through the aorta, where it'll go back to your kidneys to be filtered again. So the structural and functional unit of our kidneys is called a nephron. Okay, we have millions of nephrons. You have about 1 million per kidney. You have 2 kidneys, so about 2 million nephrons total. These are located in the medulla of the kidney. Okay, you can see here how it would be structured, but they are very, very tiny. So again, you're going to have millions of them in your kidneys. They are going to be what's responsible for forming urine. The blood will pass through the nephron because there's part of the nephron that has capillaries in it, and that's going to be where the filtration actually happens. So if we look again at a more detailed view of the nephron, there's some main structures that we need to talk about. First, we have the glomerulus, and that would be right in here. It's kind of a little cluster or knot of capillaries, and that sits inside of a capsule that we call Bowman's capsule. So that surrounds those capillaries there. There's the renal tubule that extends down from Bowman's capsule, and it ends at the collecting duct, which is this part of the nephron here. The collecting duct, again, is this part. It's labeled in this picture for you, and that's going to receive urine from many different nephrons, and that's going to run through the medullary pyramids and then deliver urine to the calyces and the renal pelvis, where it will then make its way into the ureters to leave your kidneys and go to the bladder to be stored temporarily. With urine formation, there are several steps. So first, our step is glomerular filtration. Step 2 is tubular reabsorption, because you're going to reabsorb the things that you need. And then the final step is tubular secretion. So with glomerular filtration, it's a non-selective passive process, so it's not going to need energy. What's going to happen with this is that water and small solutes, so things that are smaller than proteins typically, are going to be forced through the walls of the capillary. And again, the capillaries would be right in here in the glomerulus inside of Bowman's capsule. Usually proteins and blood cells are too large to pass through, so they will stay inside of in the blood in the capillaries. And then the filtrate, what's coming out of the blood here, is going to be collected in Bowman's capsule, and it's going to leave down here through the renal tubule. Next, we have the next step of urine formation is tubular reabsorption. The peritubular capillaries are going to reabsorb anything that would still be useful to the body. That could include water, glucose, amino acids to help build proteins, ions, so maybe like sodium, for example. Some reabsorption is passive, meaning it's not going to require energy from the cells to be moved back into the blood, but most of it is active, so most of it will require energy to be used to allow these things to go from the renal tubules back into the blood supply. Most reabsorption occurs in the proximal convoluted tubule, so closer to, let me go back here. Okay, so like in this part of the renal tubule. Okay, the proximal is going to refer to its proximity or closeness to Bowman's capsule. So what things are not going to be reabsorbed? Any nitrogenous waste products, because we don't want to pull waste back into our blood. It's going to include urea, which comes from the breakdown of proteins, uric acid, which comes from breaking down nucleic acids, creatinine, which is associated with the metabolism of creatine in our muscles. And then finally we have tubular secretion, which is kind of the opposite of reabsorption. So it's going to be important for getting rid of any substances that are still in the blood but not already in the filtrate that should be leaving our kidneys as waste. Any materials that are left in the renal tubule are going to move toward the ureter so that they can be removed from the kidneys in our urine. So here we can see you've got the glomerulus. You're going to have different substances reabsorbed here. It's going to continue to flow. The waste are going to continue to flow. You can see that we're reabsorbing some salt, sodium chloride. You might have like drugs. So your kidneys, a medication that they remove would be like Advil. So that would be like taken back into the tubule so that it can go into the collecting duct and you can remove that in your urine. If we look at characteristics of our urine, in about 24 hours we remove, or produce I should say, about 1 liter to 1.8 liters of urine. Urine and filtrate are different, so all the things we were talking about that are removed from your blood earlier, those would be filtrate. Okay. Filtrate contains everything that blood plasma does except for proteins that would be in our blood plasma. And again, that's the liquid part of blood. Urine is going to be what remains after the filtrate has lost most of its water, nutrients, and any ions that the body still needs through that process of reabsorption. Urine will have nitrogenous wastes and any substances that are not needed. So, for example, people that are diabetic, one of the ways you can tell they're diabetic is that they will have glucose in their urine. So they have extra glucose in their blood, and that will be removed. That excess glucose will be removed by the kidneys. So you would find glucose in the urine of someone with diabetes. The yellow color of urine is due to a pigment called urochrome, and that comes from breaking down hemoglobin as our red blood cells are broken down once their life cycle has ended, as well as solutes. So that gives our urine its color. It should be a pale straw color. It should not be very dark yellow. It also should not be clear. Urine is sterile. Okay, so it's not contaminated with bacteria or anything. It can become contaminated when it leaves our body if there's bacteria on our skin. It is slightly aromatic, so it does have a scent to it. The normal pH of urine is around a 6.